Now, another context where NLP can be very useful is in education. Maybe you're watching this and you're a teacher or a teaching assistant, a lecturer, or perform some other role in an educational establishment. NLP is being used quite widely in some schools. Sadly, it hasn't caught on in all areas, but very much starting to teach the pupil from the pupil's model of their world. Now, model of their world is a bit of NLP lingo, but essentially from their perspective. There are lots of children that sadly in our education system don't learn best in the way that the traditional schools and ways that teachers get taught how to teach. And actually, every child needs something different. Now, I fully get teachers don't have time to teach 30 children in 30 different ways. But in order to help people get the best out of their education, I believe we owe it to them to be flexible in the way that we teach. We have something in the NLP toolkit called the spelling strategy. And most schools teach spelling in a way that's not going to lead to them that pupils being successful. I was almost labelled as dyslexic. I'm glad they didn't label me, but spelling is something that has plagued me most of my life. And that's because when I went to school, we were taught to spell by covering and copying, covering and copying, trying to sound it out. Typically, a poor speller will try to spell through feeling. So they'll write a word out, which is typically how I used to do it. Right away, does that feel right? And sadly, only 50% of the time will that strategy actually work. Sadly, the schools are now teaching phonetics and getting children to sound out the words. And again, sadly, 50% of the time, they're going to get them wrong. And so what they did in NLP was they went and found some amazingly good spellers and worked out that the best spellers actually spell visually. Why are we not teaching that in schools, right? I know a very enlightened executive head of some primary schools in the Midlands, and she's got her teaching assistants and her teachers teaching the parents and the pupils how to use this spelling strategy, and it's really, really working a treat. Teachers and lecturers and so forth really learning how to present well. Great education isn't just, in my view, about imparting knowledge. It's about how you do that. Most of you, if you think back to your education days, will remember the teachers that made you laugh, the teachers that used stories to illustrate their points, the teachers that you enjoyed being in front of, and there'll be other teachers that you'll be like, didn't enjoy their lectures, and you'll probably find they might be monotone, they might be just imparting knowledge, not really illustrating what they're saying. Now, building rapport, with students, you're never going to get anybody, child or not, to do anything you want them to do if you don't have rapport with them. And we teach in our practitioner course how to do that. And we also teach a very particular style of storytelling called metaphors and nested metaphors or embedded metaphors that really opens up the trapdoor of the unconscious mind of the pupil. There is little point in you trying to, we probably all know this, when you try and have a child in a high chair and you try and force feed them vegetables, all sorts happens, right? Spit it out, chuck it on the floor, thump the high chair. You can't get them to do what you want. Whereas if you can engage them and you can really get them on board with what you're going to do, and in the case of the high chair, can actually get them to want to open their mouth, to want to eat those vegetables. If you can get a classroom of pupils wanting to learn, wanting to hear what you've got to say, oh my goodness, is that going to change educational outcomes?